Welcome everyone. My name is Dolores. Welcome to my channel. It is such a pleasure that you've decided to join us in Read With Me. Read With Me is literally us sharing kingdom leaders' books, okay? The books that we believe that the Lord has revealed some of the secrets that we pray for every day and some secrets that will propel us forward into the things of God and fulfilling our purpose. Read with me. You can just listen, or if you like, you can totally read along with me. We are reading Unstoppable by the wisdom filled author, Dr. Cindy Trimm, and we have truly been just so enlightened by this book. It is such a blessing, and we are thankful and grateful. So, today, what we're going to do, we're going to continue reading. We're going to get right into it. We're not going to waste any time. Don't mind my background. We got things going on here, but it's okay. We're going to continue reading on page 84. What I would like to do, though, is just remember the takeaways that we have gotten so far are knowing our identity, right? Who God has made us to be on the inside. And also just want to thank you all for just reading along with me. So, like I said, today we're going to jump right into it on page and continue on page 84 with conscientiousness. Okay. What are the rules? She said, I need more information. I'm sorry, let me take my glasses off. I need more information. Please don't make me late. Complaint and conscientious, said that, are the two words most frequently used as the identifier for the C in DISC. As each word suggests, rules, structure, and details are important to this personality type. But don't let the word complaint fool you into thinking you can push those people around. They are complaints to logic. In fact, they adore logic. They use their orderly brains to analyze everything from numbers and news to every aspect, even of their personal lives. They like neat, well organized, stable environments, precise words, and clear cut rules. Make the C personality types happy, or at least comfortable, she says. Strong C's may want to watch out for the following: a tendency to be harshly self critical. Self evaluation is a good thing, but C's have the propensity to make that criticism too far. Demanding perfection. Wow. You know how it is when we want to demand perfection. None of us is perfect. Okay, so let's continue. Demanding perfection with little to no room for error. Placing more value on facts than people, simply because information and details are very important to those with a high C personality. They may appear to be calculating rather than caring. Being structured to the point of rigidity, C's can seem unwilling to change unless all the facts indicate that change is absolutely the right decision. Learning adaptive skills can help C's get along better with others. Page 85. If you have a strong C characteristics, you probably already know that your analytical abilities are very strong. Use them to your advantage by taking on roles that require fact finding and fact based decision making. Your calculating style may come off as cold. So keep in mind that just as your feelings run deep, so can, I'm sorry, let me read that again. Your calculating style may come off as cold. So keep in mind that just as your feelings run deep and can be easily offended, sensitivity may be the best tool when dealing with others. If you are not a C, but live or work with one who may find their questions about how and why tiresome, rather than trying to push ahead with a C, be patient and willing to supply the facts that they need. Doing so, she says, will improve your communication as well as your ability to relate to and work well with them. And please do not show up late for a meeting with them. She says, orderlessness and promptness are important indicators of a quality C personality type. Okay. Be true to yourself without running over others. As I mentioned earlier, there are a number of assessments available to help you better understand your personality type. But I bet you can see yourself and your tendencies in at least one of the above four categories. Keep in mind that most people possess qualities from at least two of the personality types. For instance, I am a DI. That means I love a good challenge, she says. I also love talking with people, and I am energized by helping others succeed. I love creating and establishing new products and projects, and I hire a team of professionals to manage the details. When you understand your personality strengths, you can harness them and use them to your advantage. If, on the other hand, you try to behave in ways that are contrary to your natural bent ability, you'll end up frustrated and exhausted. It's like trying to wear, page number 86, a shoe that doesn't fit. It doesn't matter if the shoe is too narrow, too wide, or too short, or too long. If it isn't a perfect fit, it will cause pain and could even make you stumble and fall. Let's take this shoe illustration a step further. She says, imagine that every person in your house, workplace, or community was required to wear the exact same shoe size. Why not pick a nice shoe? Let's say a woman's size six, black suede, manoleo, band neck with a 4-inch heel. Barney's New York sells Barney's New York sells them for $595 a pair. Well, the first problem is obvious. Men aren't going to wear such a shoe, right? And I doubt all of the women you know wear a size 6. So the men and the women whose feet are too big, she says, or too small, are already struggling with the shoe choice they've been forced into. The rest of the women can manage to fit into a size 6, but only a few can walk confidently with that heel height. And of the very small group of women left, who are able to stroll gracefully without teetering. Not all of them are thrilled with black suede. Some think they are far too expensive and impartial. Others look down at the plain black shoe and wish for a little bling or a pop of color. Harnessing your personality's strengths, she says, is like finding the perfect shoe in fit, form, and function. These strengths are your core virtues, and they make you unique and powerful. The color, the way you see yourself, and the world around you. In the previous section, you identified your core values. I'm willing to wager that if you are living with integrity, whole and undivided, you can see a deep correlation between your virtues and your values. When you are living and communicating authentically, your virtues and values are intertwined like a beautiful and intricately woven cord that strengthens your life. Trying to deny your personality by attempting to be something you're not is like pulling apart the strands of that cord, destroying both its strength and its beauty. It's important to note here that there are no bad or wrong personality types. We just have to know how to deal with them, right? Okay. And then how to deal with ourselves as well. As I've described with the characteristics of each personality type, we all have areas in which we are especially gifted, page number 87, as well as traits that can negatively affect our relationships and our self perceptions. If not handled with care, revel, she says, in your uniqueness. It is the most precious gift we all offer. Okay? At the same time, work to understand and honor others' unique personalities so you can empower them to be themselves. That's the freedom we all need to thrive at. Okay? In the next chapter, we'll focus on how to develop habits that will help you stay true to your identity and your personality. Okay, so we just caught a few things about knowing our personality types. um, what she's saying here is don't dim down your personality type. Know your personality type and be okay with it, okay? Because that helps us to relate to our core values, our virtues, which results to our core values. Okay, let's continue. Winning actions. Live your virtues. How often do you do something simply because it's expected of you? You grin and bear it or bite your tongue, all the while feeling the internal conflict that exists. When you live contrary to what is authentic to you, the longer you live a life that is incongruent with your values, identity, and virtues, the more stressed and frustrated you will become. She says, isn't it time to bring your life into alignment and feel the freedom and power of being yourself? For this exercise, I want to examine what's behind the most stressful situations in your life. Okay? Could it be that there is a disconnect between who you are, which is your identity, your values, and especially your personality style and your words and actions. Take a moment to consider the following questions. Do you feel that you are constantly asked to work outside of your comfort zone? How often are you able to use your personality strengths? How can you bring your gifts to the forefront or the forefront of your work? Happiness and harmony comes with when you shift your life so that you are drawing on your strengths rather than operating outside of them and focusing on fixing your weaknesses. Page 88, which is chapter 5. Create winning habits. All our life, so far as it has definite form, is but a mass of habits. William James. Okay. Create winning habits. Page 89. When you get in the car, which do you do first? Start the engine or buckle your seatbelt? Can you remember? Most people have to stop and think about the question. Go ahead, envision yourself opening the car door, sitting down, she says, and then what comes next? Every day you repeat the same behavior, but I'll bet that when you get in your car, you give a little to no thought to the process it takes to put the vehicle in motion. You just sit down, and within a few seconds, you're cruising down the street. So true. Your daily routines, from the way you start your car to the muscle movements required to walk, speak, and type, to the way you begin your morning, are largely automated. Oh, that's good. And that's truth, right? Much of your daily behavior, she says, nearly half is performed habitually. Habits, as defined by Merriam-Webster, are a usual way of behaving, something that a person does often in a regular or repeated manner. It's that regular and repeated manner that turns a behavior into a habit. After all, you didn't always know how to drive a car, she says. You had to learn. At first, you deliberately thought, page 90, about every single move you made. You precisely adjusted the seat and mirrors. You carefully checked your side and rear view mirrors. With which perhaps a bit of struggle, you put the car into the correct gear. You checked your mirrors once more before applying pressure to the gas pedal. She says, if the car launched forward, you made a mental note, not that hard, and tried again a bit more gently. Within a few weeks of daily driving, all those calculated movements, she says, felt like second nature. Now, you no longer need to focus on your routine. You just do, right? Our brain's aptitude for forming habits is incredibly beneficial. We save time and energy because of our ability to instantly recall how to perform basic functions. For the brain, forming habits is somewhat self serving, expending little to no energy Focusing on mundane tasks frees you to talk to passengers, listen to the radio, and navigate new roads. But please don't text and drive, she says in parentheses. Habits are not inherently good or bad. They are simply your brain's way of conserving energy and minimalizing conscious efforts, and they can work for you, she says, or against you. Good habits like brushing your teeth, exercising daily, meditating, and planning your daily schedule can help you live a healthier life, a stronger, happier, and more productive life. Bad habits, on the other hand, like binge watching your favorite shows, emotional eating, and procrastination, are sabotaging. Inter, in, Interestingly, you probably never intended to form those negative habits. They just happened. Or so it seems, she says. A habit is an automatic pattern of thought that leads to certain behaviors. When running on automatic, there are many useful habits that streamline daily living. But to become unstoppable, you have to alter the way you approach what you do on a daily basis, right? You must be mindful and intentional about maximizing your time and energy. You must make choices consciously and consciously and unconsciously, she says. You must think and act in harmony with your greatest aspirations. Don't let yourself fall asleep at the wheel by becoming the servant of your habits rather than their master. Okay, page 91. There is no magic pill or one action that will ease all the bad habits you may have acquired. What you need are practical habits, redirecting techniques you can apply over time. A habit does not form instantaneously, neither will it be reformed instantaneously. However, if you are committed to becoming the next best version of yourself, determined to unleash the potential lying dormant inside of you over time, you will develop habits that are in sync with your greatest and point you toward your genius zone. Let me just say that right. Humans are excuse me, forming creatures. We all have habits we should keep and ones we should do better without, right? We must replace the ones that no longer serve the best version of ourselves. If we intend to progress beyond our current realities and experience unstoppable success in life. Mm. In this book, The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg describes habits as powerful but delicate. Habits can emerge outside of our consciousness or can be deliberately designed. They often occur without our permission, but can be reshaped by fiddling with their parts. They shape our lives far more than we realize, she says. They are so strong, in fact, they cause our brains to cling to them at the exclusion of all else, including common sense. Wow. Mm. Isn't that the truth? Even when you know a habit isn't helpful or productive, changing it requires focus and persistent effort. Common sense or even willpower isn't enough to change or break some habits. How many people do you know who have given up smoking more than once? I know several, okay? How often have you committed to stop overeating or overspending? Somehow, she says, when you're in the moment at the restaurant or the store, stopping yourself never even crosses your mind. You may feel remorse or regret later, but common sense doesn't even show up until after the damage is done. Page 92, and that is truth. Okay? Wow. Yes, habits are powerful. As Doug notes, our habits shape our lives. And for that reason, you must shape your habits if you want to win at being unstoppable. Okay? Out with the old, in with the new. Did you learn to ride a bicycle as a child? If so, you can probably hop on one today and within just a few seconds be paddling your way around the block, right? Your brain tucked away all the habits necessary. This is good for staying balanced, steering, and braking. It might take several tries at it to feel fully confident, she says, but before long, you will feel completely at ease. That's because our habits never really go away. Oh, they can be intentionally superseded, but they are never totally eliminated. Get some water on that because that's good. Okay, let's continue. When it comes to bicycling or finding your way home after an extended vacation, those buried habits work to your advantage. She says the other side of that truth, however, means ingrained habits are always there to fall back on. A nail is driven out by another nail. Habit is overcome by a habit. Wow. This serious Eramus. Neutral pathways formed by repetitive behaviors are the roots in your brain. It is possible to climb out of those roots by and create your new neutral pathways with new repeated behaviors. But those old ruts never remain. That's what makes attempts and simply illuminating bad habits so frustrating. Rationale and willpower may work for a few days, but before long, habitual behaviors will resurface. Wow. And you'll end up back in that well worn out. That's good. Sometimes you just have to laugh at yourself, especially when the light comes on. When we're being enlightened here, it's nothing to feel bad about or anything, but what is supposed to strike up is change, and that's what we're reading this book for. Change, insight, to be enlightened. So let's continue. The way to win is to displace old habits by instilling new ones in their stead. In truth, creating a brand new habit is easier than ridining, ridiculing yourself of an established one. In the compound effect, Darren Hardy recommends think addition, not subtraction. That's good. Page 93. When you try to eliminate a negative habit, your thought turns to what you can't or shouldn't do. That's the wavering a red flag at a bull. Focusing on what you can have makes you want it even more. Truth. Instead, focus on what you can have. Shift your attention to adding a positive habit to your life rather than eliminating a negative one. Over time, you may discover that the undesirable habit gets replaced. That's what we want, right? Without much conscious thought or effort. The anatomy of a habit. A rich man once asked an old wise man to help his son change his bad habits. So the wise man took the son on a walk through a garden. After taking a few steps, the wise man stopped and asked the young man to pluck a small flower from the ground. The young man reached down and easily plucked it out. The wise man nodded, and they resumed walking. A few moments later, they stopped again, and the wise man pointed towards another plant, a bigger, larger than the last. The young man, wow, let me read that again. A few moments later, they stopped again, and the wise man pointed towards another plant, a big bit larger than the last one. The young man firmly grabbed it and, with a bit of effort, pulled it from the ground. Now, pull out that one, the wise man said, pointing towards a bush. A bush. The young man grabbed the bush with both hands and tugged with all of his strength, barely managing to pull it out of the ground. Now, you see that small tree? Asked the wise man. Try to pull it up. The young man grabbed the trunk with both hands and pulled as hard as he could, but he couldn't make it budge. Wow. It's impossible, he exclaimed. The wise man replied, You see, my boy, it's the same with your habits. The longer you allow them to take root and grow in your life, the more difficult they are or they become to pull out. Habits that don't serve our greatest good can become like weeds in our lives. They can proliferate until they choke out the efforts of our good habits. Oh my goodness. Understanding how habits work will allow you, as Doug puts it, fiddle with their parts. Researchers have found that, page 95, 94, our reoccurring daily activities are done in the same place at the same time and or when we are in a particular mood. That's because all habitual behaviors are initiated by a cue or trigger. The cue may be your alarm clock or stress or a particular smell or a place like your car or office desk. Whatever the cue is, it sets your routine in motion, she says, by sparking a craving or desire for an expected reward. Like Parlo's dog responding to the dinner bell. When you smell your favorite food, your mouth waters in anticipation of the delicious reward. Even when you are not hungry, that craving pushes you into a routine behavior, aka, she says, habit, that ultimately satisfies the craving with a reward. Wow. Mm. Let's go a little further. Trigger, desire, behavior, reward. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Let me sit back. Trigger, desire, behavior, reward. Okay? Identifying your habits. Triggers can help you anticipate and even circumvent routine behaviors, but that requires conscious thought. Since habits are by nature performed subconsciously, attempting to catch and stop habitual behavior before it happens is challenging and improbable. As I said earlier, it's easier to create new habits than to change or eliminate old ones. So I'm going to encourage you to use what you know about your core values and your personal goals to create new triggers that motivate new behaviors that will deliver rewards you desire. One more note about creating new habits. You must believe it's possible. If you need help changing a that's just the way I am mindset, refer back to chapter 1. You can almost I'm sorry, I said that wrong. You can most definitely change your life if you will choose to change your thinking. How to create a new habit. She says it happens every January 1st. Resolutions are made, sometimes with great care and planning, and sometimes out of rash desperation. Promising to be better this year are common resolutions, page 95, that include eating healthier, exercising more regularly, saving more, spending less, reading more. Let's say that again. Reading more, going to church, volunteering in the community, working smarter rather than harder. Devoting more time to family. Have I left anything out? She's good. She's good. By January 30, most of those good intentions have been replaced by feelings of disappointment and failure, she says. One of the most common mistakes people make when they are ready to win, when they have a burning desire to improve their lives, is to attempt to tackle a long list of all the aspects of their lives they want to change all at once. It doesn't work, right? Imagine trying to catch 10 different balls simultaneously, all of which are being thrown at you from a different angle, from all different angles. Okay. Could you catch one or two? Perhaps, she said, but certainly not all of them. All at the same time. That's what it's like when you're trying to fix everything about your life in one fell swoop. It simply doesn't work. Okay. She says, most of us have a few negative or self defeating habits of which we are painfully aware. Mm. It's noble and good to recognize the areas of your life that needs improvement. But for now, I'm going to ask you to focus. Okay, let's get this good because she's challenging us here. She wants us to focus. But for now, I'm going to ask you to focus on one. Okay? At the end of chapter 3, I posed a critical question. What one thing can you change that will change everything? That's good. If you're most like most people, you know exactly what that one thing is. In the next few pages, I'm going to share some very practical ideas that will help you finally make that one big change that will change everything, she says. Here's the plan. You're going to start small, celebrate your wins, and give it time. Okay, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to read it one more time because this is something I really believe we need to hold true to, okay? She says, here's the plan. You're going to start small, celebrate your wins, and give it time. And she says, I know you can do it. Thank you so much, Dr. Cindy Trimm. Ah, that's so good. Tiny habits. Let's continue reading. Okay. You already know that trying to make too many changes at once is a recipe for failure. Likewise, attempting to create a new routine by introducing a very difficult or time consuming activity into your day sets you up for disappointment. Okay? True. Right? Page 96. Let's continue. In his TED Talk, Stanford professor and behavior researcher Dr. B.J. Fogg explains that massive efforts require equal massive motivation. We've already noted that willpower won't win over our established habits. And if those new habits require even more willpower, you're all about doomed to miss the mark. What does work? What does work are small? Okay. What does work are small? I'm saying, okay, I read that wrong. I'm going to read it again. It's okay. What does work are small, or as Fogg says, tiny changes, tiny as in doing 2 push-ups or flossing 1 tooth, both examples Fogg offers in his TED Talk. Does flossing 1 tooth sound a bit simple, or perhaps ineffectual? Well, it certainly won't rid you of gingivitis right away, but Fogg insists that by doing one tiny behavior, you create the habit of making time to floss, right? Once you're flossing 1 tooth regularly, the logical progression is to floss all of them eventually, right? It isn't flossing that is difficult. It is getting into the habit of doing it daily. You need to design for the behaviors that lead to the outcomes. State Fogg's, how do you choose your tiny habit? First, consider what reward you ultimately want. Go ahead, write it down in your journal, the one thing that could change everything. Now, let's break down that outcome into small incremental steps. Here's an example. Daniela is in sales. She knows that closing 1 additional client a week would propel her career and earn her and her family an all expense paid vacation. What an outcome. However, closing the additional sale isn't the tiny habit. That's the outcome. Daniela's tiny habit might include calling 1 satisfied client a day to ask for a referral. That's good. Or calling 1 prospect to schedule an appointment, or exchanging 1 business card with a new contact, or sending 1 follow-up email to just 1 person who said, let me think about it. There are probably countless activities that could help you in your progress towards the ultimate outcome you deserve. List at least 5 in your workbook or journal. Review your list, page number 97. Which of these activities do you already know how to do? If you don't know how to do any of them, which will be the easiest to learn? Which would require the least motivation? Pick that one and only that one. Go for a little easy wins and then repeat. And then repeat again, she says. Pull the trigger, then celebrate. That sounds so simple, doesn't it? Pick one small thing and do it every day. Like, just do it. Have you tried that before? And did it work? If the just do it slogan didn't work, you're going to want to pay attention to this next part of Fogg's Tiny Habits motto. It's brilliant. Step 1, create the trigger. You've selected your tiny habit. Now you're going to create the trigger that motivates you to take action. Remember the sequence for habits: triggers, desires, behavior, reward. You need a prompt that tells your brain to perform the tiny action you've chosen. In Fogg's example about flossing, the trigger is brushing one tooth. Initially, you're going to have to think about this trigger. It's not a habit yet until it becomes so routine that you do it automatically, she says. Use Fogg's simple formula to remind yourself when to take action. It looks like this. After I, existing behavior, I will, new behavior. So if the habit is flossing, you would say, after I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth. For Daniela, the aforementioned salesperson, the tiny habit might be sending that follow-up email. But when the key is to, page 98, choose an existing reoccurring behavior since things may get busier and less ordered throughout the day. As soon as she turns on her office computer in the morning, she will send that follow-up email. Her tiny habit statement would be, after I turn on my computer, I will send one follow-up message to a prospect. Write down your trigger statement in your journal. After I, and then I will. Okay, we've left off on page 98. I am so happy that you decide to join me. We will be right back here. I will definitely post it when we will be reading again as we continue this very wisdom-filled and powerful book, Unstoppable, by Dr. Cindy Trimm. Thank you so much, everyone that is reading along with me, and thank you also to those who are listening along with me. I appreciate your time, and until next time, let's do the assignment in which she gave us. I'm going to repeat it one more time before we end. After I blank, I will blank. What we're trying to do is develop a tiny habit, just something small. We put to do something small, right? And do it and make it a habit. Continue to do it. So it's after I will. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, you guys have a wonderful and blessed evening.